All right, of course, that wraps up some of those sentiments. Thank you very much for interacting with us. The conversations obviously continue on our various social media platforms. So as we park that conversation there, on to this next one now, ahead of what's happening this week. We're looking at the luxury market, which, as we know, includes a variety of services that taps into consumer preferences across all categories, with subtle nuances that shape consumer perceptions and behaviors within that luxury market space. And so ahead of the rush of Black Friday deals that will be emerging, Michael Zahariev, he's the co-founder of Luxity, now joins us to explore some of the dynamics unfolding in relation to these dynamics and deals as well. A very good morning to you, Michael, and thank you for your time at the SABC at this hour.
Great to be with you this morning, and nice chatting to you and your viewers.
Let's delve in. I mean, every year, we're looking at the hype, as well as the trends with consumer behavior around this time. But as we hone in on, the African luxury market itself, it seems that it's defied the downward trend in global consumer spending. What does this actually mean in terms of consumer behavior in relation to that?
Well, I think in Africa and South Africa specifically, we're seeing the trend defy the global outlook because consumers still really desire luxury, regardless of what's going on in the economy. That's something that we saw after COVID and even during COVID to a greater extent. Consumers really demanded luxury. But internationally, this trend is starting to slow and soften, with many of the luxury brands having invested in areas which are really underperforming, specifically the East and China, which is really struggling right now, and they're losing their demand for luxury. When we look locally, however, there are positive signs in the economy. Interest rates are going down. There's a general economic stability, which is creating some hope in the segment. And if we look at what the data is telling us, the international luxury market is set to grow between 2% and 4% this year. Whereas when we look locally at the data available from the CLER Shopping Center Index report, luxury trading density, which defines how much the luxury market will grow in Africa or South Africa, is actually growing 8%. So that's double the international rate, which shows that the demand is really strong in South Africa. And I think that is also largely due to supply. There hasn't been too much supply, new brands, new shops coming into the country.
Okay.
And that's what's held up that demand growth.
So thank you for speaking to some of those key drivers of positive market sentiments at this point across the continent. I then want to look at how embracing sustainable practices, even championing social causes, comes to the fore. How luxury brands themselves can not only mitigate the environmental footprint, but can also enhance the offering then.
Well, I think that's something that consumers, particularly in the West, have been demanding.
Yeah.
Environmental practices, sustainability has been one of the top trends in what consumers are demanding. And of course, this has put a lot of pressure on the luxury industry and the fashion industry as a whole, as it is one of the worst in terms of its contributors to CO2 and emissions, etc. So what we've seen recently is a lot of practices being pulled back. Some viewers might know, infamously, luxury brands used to destroy their unused goods in order to, keep their items exclusive and limit supplies. That practice has been mostly abolished. And we're really seeing something else that's come around, which is the pre-owned sector. The pre-owned sector is really one of the main things that's driving luxury brands to make these changes, because as much as it might be a trend with consumers, it's only really valuable to them once consumers start moving their spend. And that's what we've seen in the West, and we're starting to see locally, where consumers are starting to take their money that they would spend on luxury items, buying it new, and looking rather for pre-owned options in order to not only save money, but also to push forward their environmental agenda, because they know it's more sustainable and better on their conscience.
What are some of the concerns as well heading in? I mean, we're looking at international trends as well, but how do we also enhance our own agency as a continent? I mean, looking to where we place our value and how that also becomes increasingly important given this geopolitical shift.
Well, I think, looking locally, it's better always, of course, sustainability touches many things. So if you're buying sustainable, it's not just about, the brand you're buying, what they're doing at the end of the chain or the beginning of the chain. Is it shipping from overseas? How many times am I reusing the item? So many people, sometimes feel, I don't want to perhaps buy a secondhand item, but they don't realize that actually selling your items is also contributing to the cause. It's not just about purchasing. If you're even just able to sell your items rather than dispose of them, that's already one step in the right direction. Buying locally, of course, is always helpful, and not only because it supports the economy, but because there's a lower carbon footprint in terms of transport and all of those things. So having an eye on all of these things and a better understanding is really important and is the first step in the right direction.
If we're going to then forecast, perhaps also look at, what is transpiring around Black Friday and beyond, what does 2025 look like?
Well, for South Africa, in fact, 2025 is a very exciting year when it comes to luxury because of this faster growth of demand that we're seeing here. We're slating that a lot of new brand entrants are coming. We're seeing investment in the Sandton City. We're seeing investment in Waterfront, which are the major luxury hubs, and it will go outward from there, bringing in new malls, new luxury wing segments, and therefore we're seeing new brand entrants. So particularly the market is going to grow because there's a lot of hype that comes from these new brands. A lot of new spending will occur, and that's really going to accelerate, hopefully, this growth into the future and make South Africa not only a #1 shopping destination in Africa, but one of the key shopping destinations of the world.
So, because accessibility drives demand, talk to us about inclusivity as well. I'm looking at the ACFTA, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, the developments on that front. How has that aided these growth forecasts and the movements at large for the continent and its agency?
Yeah. Well, I mean, as I mentioned, it's South Africa is the #1 shopping destination for Africa, and that's not because it has the best offering, but it's because it has the best accessibility. So, we don't have as many stores as Paris or Italy, but it's very accessible for Africans. So Africans are choosing to come to South Africa specifically for shopping. We often speak to tourists in Sandton where we'll say, why are you visiting in our stores? What is the reason for your trip? And they'll say, no, because I wanted to come shopping. And, that's something that we would normally think of New York or Paris or Italy. So, it is definitely a great way to get tourists in. But I think as these free trade areas open up, it's also going to be a great way for these luxury brands to get out into the continent, because South Africa and Morocco are the only two countries on the continent which have the luxury brands present. So there's a huge lack of accessibility across the continent in general.
All right, Michael. So we're obviously going to see the patterns and trends emerging, given that we are approaching Black Friday this week and beyond. The festive season is also well ahead of us. Thank you for joining us at this hour, Michael Zahariev, co-founder of Luxity, chatting to us about all things consumer spending ahead of the festive period, as well as Black Friday deals that we obviously will be seeing coming to the fore this week. We'll leave it there.